Hey everybody, Shaun Stevenson here, author of the Throne series, and we're in the middle of January, and I forgot to do my December Reading Roundup. So today, we're catching up with my December reads. There are 25 books I have to share with you. I don't have all of the books that I read here. I actually believe I read 31 books last month, but I have 25 of them here. Some of them I don't have because they were picture books or board books that sometimes I read at the checkout stand or at the bookstore just to see what I think of them before I buy them. So I've got all the others though that I read, so let's dive in. The first book I have is a board book for Christmas called Silent Night, A Christmas Song, and this one is illustrated by Sarah Gianassi. And this book is beautifully illustrated. I talked about this in my Christmas picture board books video, but this one is just amazing. The artwork is incredible, and it's pretty much just the lyrics of the song Silent Night set to all these different amazing pictures throughout the book. So it's a board book. It's a great one for Christmas time. That is Silent Night, A Christmas Song. And then following in the same vein, I also read Joy to the World, A Christmas Song, and this one was also illustrated by Sarah Gianassi. And this one is a similar style. It has the lyrics of Joy to the World. I also talked about this one in my Christmas board books video, so check that out for more. But again, it goes through the whole song of Joy to the World with all these different amazing pictures of nature and animals, and I just thought it was so awesome. So that is Joy to the World, A Christmas Song. And then this is a book that was on my top 10 reads of 2023, and that is the Dark Sword Trilogy, Book 2, Doom of the Dark Sword. I wanted to read some fantasy books last year written for adults. I usually read middle grade and YA fiction and fantasy books, so I thought I should try one. So I read this series, the first 2 books so far. I have to read book 3 still. But these books were great. I loved it. It's a kind of ye old swords and sorcery kind of book with all kinds of different things going on in a very long story that's a little slow moving, but has so many amazing, interesting world building pieces. And if you want to know more about it, check out my top 10 video to find out where I placed it last year. Then the next book I read, I don't know what to think about this book, and I am choosing to reserve judgment until I finish the 4-book series. I've only read the first 2, and this is book 2 in the Dream Traveler's Quest, The Curse of the Shadow Man by Ted Decker and Kara Decker. And so this series is based on a 4-book series that came out a long time ago by Ted Decker. I love Ted Decker. He's one of my favorite Christian fantasy authors and thriller authors, and he wrote this series called The Circle Trilogy first, and then there was a 4th book added. The first book is black, then red, then white, and then green is the 4th book, or book 0, depending on where you read it. You can read it very first or last. I think it's best to read it last. I personally think it's very best to read Ted Decker's books in chronological order of publication, because his books build on each other, and a lot of them are connected within the Decker universe of stories. This is in that Circle Trilogy series. This is a kid's book that came out, and while it revisited that world, and I really enjoyed revisiting that world, I don't know what to think about the storytelling here. I actually think that maybe Kara Decker wrote this and Ted Decker gave some ideas, but it's just not quite the best in my opinion. I still enjoyed reading it. I wasn't bored, but it was not my favorite. So like I said though, I'm still holding off total judgment and what I think about it until I finish books 3 and 4, because I think it's very much an ongoing story, and so I want to read all 4 before I decide what I think for real. But that was the next book I read, The Curse of Shadow Man. And then the next book I read was Spine Chiller's Book 5, The Phantom of Phys Ed. I have an entire review on this book on the channel, so go check that out if you want to find out more about the Spine Chiller series. Basically, it's a Christian ripoff of Goosebumps, and this one was a pretty good one. I enjoyed it. So that is The Phantom of Phys Ed, Book 5 in the Spine Chiller series by Fred E. Katz. And then this was a great board book that I read. This one is called What Do I Do with Worry? And this one is by, I'm going to remember the names. This one is by Dr. Josh and Christy Straub with art by Jane Butler. And this book is a really great one if you have kids who struggle with worry or anxiety. It helps kids think about how to kind of process their worry and talk to people about it and talk to God about it, as well as, teaching kids some simple breathing exercises to help them pause and think. So I really enjoyed this board book. It's called What Do I Do with Worry? And I highly recommend this one, especially if you have a child who really does worry about a lot of things. It's a really great look at how to process worry. So that is What Do I Do with Worry? The next book I read is book 3 in a series that I had not read in a long time, and it is book 3 in the Wormling series, and this is The Changeling. Now this book, I have a whole review on this one as well on the channel, so check that out for more in-depth information, but it was a little confusing to read coming back to it after a long time. So if you're going to read this series, you've got to read it all kind of in order, so otherwise you'll kind of forget some stuff. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of recaps out there to help you kind of catch up with where you were. So that is The Changeling, book number 3 in the Wormling series by Jerry B. Jenkins and Chris Fabry. Then, okay. Oh, this might be the wildest book I read in December. It is book number 11 in the Shivers series by M.D. Spencer, Guess Who's Coming for Dinner? Now, this is only the second Shivers book that I've ever read. It's kind of a Goosebumps knockoff series. And this one is... oh boy. This was a book. This one is all about a really eerie, disturbing family that might be eating people. We don't know for sure, but it kind of seems like it. This was a really intense book, and I think one of the things that I'm learning after reading a bunch of Goosebumps books and reading books like these Shivers books and even Spine Chillers is that there is a fine line behind what is scary and what is disturbing and what is fun scary. I would say Goosebumps books and Spine Chillers books are just fun scary. This tiptoes into disturbing a little bit. I didn't do a review on this book because I was a little bothered by it at the end. The Shivers books don't really resolve, and so this one, it was a little creepy. So the next book I read was another Spine Chillers book, and this was number 8, Stay Away from the Swamp. So this book, I have a review about this book up on the channel as well, so check that out. But this is another entry in the Spine Chiller series. And this book, it was good at the very end. I think it took me all the way to the end to be like, oh, well, that was creepy and a little scary. But the way there was a little bit of a journey. So check out my review for more on that. But that was the next book I read, Spine Chillers, number 8. Stay Away from the Swamp. And then right after that, I went straight into another Spine Chillers book, and it was number 9, Tuck Me In, Mummy, Creeps from the Crypts by Freddie Katz. And so this one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It's a very Scooby-Doo-ish kind of entry in the series with the mummies chasing after the kids who are staying overnight in the museum. I said in the review video, there's one for this as well, that it reminded me of a Peg Kehrt book, and it was Terror at the Zoo. So I think I called it Danger at the Zoo, but it's Terror at the Zoo. And that really reminded me of this, where some kids there are in a zoo locked overnight, and there's a killer after them. And then this one, the kids are locked in a museum overnight and there's mummies after them. So this was a fun one. Spine Chillers, number 9. Check out my review for more info. And then, okay. Oh boy. So we got to talk about this book. A quick disclaimer about this book. I recognize that some people do not like parts of this book, and I would agree with them on that. I think that this book has some problematic elements because of the time period it was written in, and I think that this one I had to really skip past one of the chapters because of the way it portrayed a certain group of people, and so I don't really want to go too deeply into it, but I did enjoy the rest of this book. I thought it was fun, But the next book I read was The Curious Cruise of Captain Santa by Ruth Plumley Thompson. And this one had illustrations by John R. Neal, which I love his illustrations. I think he makes really fun choices for the way he depicts what is happening in the storyline. And in this book, Captain Santa Claus, is on a journey around the world because he wants to find new toy ideas. So this book, he is out looking for new toy ideas. They meet all sorts of different characters, go on different adventures that go through the horizon. There's some really interesting, neat ideas here that were a lot of fun. But like I said, there is one chapter that if you read this book or you're reading it to kids, I would suggest skipping. Chapter 7. If you are reading this book to kids, or say if you're just casually wanting to read this for fun and you don't want to be bothered by that, skip chapter 7. So that is The Curious Cruise of Captain Santa by Ruth Plumley Thompson, one of the authors of the Oz book. Then the next book I read was one of my favorites. It was on my top 10 list, and it is Fear Street number 10 by R.L. Stine, Ski Weekend. I have a review of this book up on the channel as well, so definitely check that out. This is a fun, just murder mystery kind of story with a little bit of an eerie backdrop. So if you like murder mystery type stories or mysteries with a little bit of a thriller edge, Ski Weekend, right up your alley. Definitely check this one out. Fear Street number 10 by R.L. Stine. And then this was not on my top 10 favorites list, but it was probably right outside it. I really enjoyed this book. It is number 4 in the Heebie-Jeebie series, Uncle from Another Planet by Paul Buchanan. This is another Christian knockoff series of Goosebumps, Heebie-Jeebies, and so far, these are pretty good. I actually like them a little better than Spine Chillers, to be honest. I think they're a little more, there's more danger at play that's real, and there's a little more thrill to them, and they have some interesting ideas that are woven throughout. Like, I think the threads of themes in these books are really well done. I have a review on the channel of this book as well, so check that out if you want to find out more about this book. And then this book, I was so excited to get this. My parents actually sent this one to me, and I had the first 2 books in this series for a very long time, and they sent me this for Christmas, and it was The Jolly Pocket Postman by Janet and Alan Alberg. And this series is so much fun. I talk about this one in my Christmas book haul video, so check out more for that. But this is a series where the Jolly Postman is taking letters to people, and you can actually open up the letters and read them and see what the letters say to different people, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, or Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz, or Alice in Wonderland. So it's a fairy tale kind of book with these fun letters you can actually pull out from the envelopes and read, and there's a lot of meta stuff going on. So this is The Jolly Pocket Postman, book 3 in the series. And then the next book I read, I didn't do a top 10 worst list because I usually don't read stuff if I don't like it. I will just not finish if I don't want to read something. So I did read this one because I kind of want to know how it's all going to work out, and it is book number 4 in the Wormling series, The Minions of Time by Jerry B. Jenkins and Chris Fabry. So I have a review of this book up on the channel. Check that out for more information. It's a fantasy, portal fantasy kind of series, and this one takes some interesting theological turns. If you're interested in theology at all, it's kind of interesting what they're doing, and so that's kind of why I want to finish reading the series. There's one book left, book 5, and so we'll see what happens. That is book 4 in the Wormling series, The Minions of Time. And then another book I read in the Spine Chillers series, I was on a Spine Chillers roll. I read book number 10, Stay Tuned for Terror. And this one was one of my favorites. I loved it. It was so much fun. It has these kids that are auditioning for a TV show that tells spooky stories like Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of idea. And things are a little terrifying on set. So this one, I love this one. It was a lot of fun. And I have a review of this one on the channel as well, so go check that out for more information. And then this, I'm actually, in retrospect, I think I should have put this on my top 10 list, but I didn't. So it's probably at number 11 for me on my top 10 books. This is R.L. Stine's Ghosts of Fear Street, The Ooze. I think it was after I did my review of this on the channel that I started to really think about this book more. And this book has really stuck with me. I just think it's so well constructed. And someone was saying in the comments on this video that these books were ghost written by other authors, not by R.L. Stine. So I'm going to check to see who wrote this one so we can see for good who it was. see. Cover art. Stephen Roos. Stephen Roos is the actual author, so it's ghostwritten by Stephen Roos, but R.L. Stine's name is on the cover. But this one was so good. I really enjoyed it, and I love that neon cover. Can't get over it. And then I also like to read books about ministry and pastoral stuff because I am a children's pastor. So I read Sustainable Children's Ministry from Last Minute Scrambling to Long-Term Solutions by Mark DeVries and Annette Safstrom. So this book had been highly recommended to me by a lot of different people. Said, oh, you got to read this book. It's really great about children's ministry and how to be sustainable. And while there are a lot of great processes and ideas in this book, I do think there's some underlying issues of the ways that especially Annette Safstrom was treated in a lot of the churches she worked in that I did find a little bothersome. In some of the stories she tells, she kind of makes herself out to be the problem in a lot of these different stories. Like, for instance, she tells a story about getting a practice together for a worship team for leading the music for a kids thing that she had been preparing for. She had done all the things where she scheduled the room, got all the people together, all that kind of stuff. And then the youth ministry at that church she was working at, and the youth pastor barged in with a bunch of students and kind of took over the room, and she was very upset about it and confronted the youth pastor, who said, well, we're going to use it. And then he went and called the lead pastor, who then called her and said, you're going to let them use it because their thing is more important right now. And I just thought that is very, in my opinion, toxic behavior that is not very kind and sticking to what the agreed upon ground rules of scheduling rooms, all those sorts of things in a church. So not to get into the weeds, but I do feel like I was bothered quite a bit while reading this book because of the way the author was treated in so many situations and how she in the end said, well, I should have been better. I should have done this. I should have done that. And I just thought, no, you were being treated badly. Like, that's legit what was happening. So if you're into children's ministry and you read this book, I would say go for the processes and the like different ideas she has for spreadsheets and like work, those kinds of things. But for the other pieces of it, I would say to skip those parts because it is rooted in a culture of I did the wrong thing, not the other person. And sometimes I do think that there are people who do horrible things to others, and it is no fault of the person who it is being done to. So I just think that this book is a caution book in my opinion, but that was Sustainable Children's Ministry by Annette Safstrom and Mark DeVries. And then the next book I read was really fun. I did read every single ending, and I went to every single possibility because I kept a little track on my phone. I wrote down every page number I went to and what page numbers they went to and where the ends were. And so I read R.L. Stine's Give Yourself Goosebumps, Reader Beware, You Choose the Scare, and this is book number 13, Scream of the Evil Genie. I got this one a while back, and it was a lot of fun. I had never read a Goosebumps, Give Yourself Goosebumps book, but this one was a great time. I love the holographic cover on it. I think that's so great and so 90s. And also, it was a great story. I thought it was a lot of fun. If you've never read one of these Give Yourselves Goosebumps, if you love Choose Your Own Adventure, check one of these out. It plays just the same way as any Choose Your Own Adventure where you have options at the bottom to choose and you flip to the different pages. And there are a bunch of actually good endings, which I was surprised by. I thought they were all going to be bad endings, but there were some good ones. And there are a bunch of bad ones. So see if you can make it to all the good endings. And then the next book I read was another board book, and this one is called Jesus Loves Me, because I was looking for some Valentine's Day books for our children's ministry. So this one is pretty much just the lyrics of the song Jesus Loves Me, but it has all these great bears in it, and I thought that was really fun, and I think the kids at our church are going to like this one a lot. It had some great little artwork on it. So that is a board book called Jesus Loves Me. And it's a padded board book too, which I think those are great, especially for younger kids as they hold it and flip the pages. So that is Jesus Loves Me, illustrated by Tim Warren. And then the next one I got was another board book for Valentine's Day at our church. And this one is That's What Love Is. And this is written by Hannah C. Hall and illustrated by Brendan Carney. So this one is another great one. It has all these little animals in it as it talks about the different things about what love is from 1 Corinthians 13 about, love is kindness and love is happy and love is humble, all these different things. But I really love on the back, there's these little otters I think are so great. So this is a fun little board book. That's what love is. And then this book, I haven't done a review on it yet, but I think there's one coming because I have some stuff to say about this book. I also read book number 1 in the newest Goosebumps series, Goosebumps House of Shivers, Scariest Book Ever by R.L. Stine. This one, I will say, he left me guessing the whole time. There were a couple things I was wondering about that I thought, I wonder if this is what's going on, and it was, but then he twisted it on top of that. So this one's interesting. I will definitely have more to say about it in my book review of this book, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was good. I think it's a great beginning to the series, but I kind of wanted to know if this book sets up anything for the next book, or if this will be another anthology series, because this one sort of reads like a setup situation. So I'm curious what's going to happen. The very, very end leaves it very open-ended to set up to the next book. So the next book doesn't come out yet. I think it comes out in March. So it'll be called Goblin Monday. So I'm excited to read that one and see what happens. So this one was a lot of fun though, and I will be having a review coming sometime soon of this book. And then the next book I read. Oh, my review for this book is coming up on the channel. It's scheduled to go up soon. But I read The Berenstein Bears and the Drug-Free Zone by Stan and Jan Berenstein. So this book, it's a big chapter book in the Berenstein Bears series, and oh boy. It came out in the height of the DARE program and all of the Say No to Drugs campaigns that were going on in the 90s, and this book was pretty much written for that campaign and to help kids say no to drugs. It includes public service announcements about saying no to drugs and peer pressure and all those sorts of things. So this one, I don't know if I can recommend it because it was very interesting. It was a big nostalgia throwback for me, but that is The Berenstein Bears and the Drug-Free Zone. And then right after that, I went straight into another Berenstein Bears big chapter book, and this was Berenstein Bears and the Galloping Ghost. And I remember having this one when I was a kid. This one thought was a lot of fun. I do wish the Galloping Ghost had shown up a tiny bit more than it does in the book, but I have a review for this one coming soon, so watch for that. And then the last book I read of December 2023, and it was the last book I read of 2023, and it was a great one to end on. And actually, now that I also think about it, I don't know why this book didn't end up on my top 10, because it's probably either 12 or 13, somewhere right in there. It's either right outside or it should have bumped something off. I don't know. But it was Goosebumps book number 37, The Headless Ghost by R.L. Stine. This was everything I want in a Goosebumps book. It was so much fun. The atmosphere was eerie and creepy, but not too scary. And it had a couple good moments where I was like, oh, that's really good. Had a great twist. It did have one final twist that made me question the logic of the whole story, but I have a review of this book coming soon on this channel, so check out for that soon, where I will talk a lot more about this book because I have some stuff to say. That one, though, is a lot of fun. The Headless Ghost by R.L. Stine, Goosebumps book number 37. So those are all the books I read for the month of December 2023. Have you read any of these books? Are you interested in reading any of these books with what I've said about them? I'd love to hear down below in the comments. Let me know. And I enjoyed reading quite a bit of books in December, apparently. So far in my January, I have finished 3 books. So we'll see how many I read this month. It might be a tiny bit slower, but that's okay. It's a new year and things are off to a new start. So thanks for coming with me on this journey through all the books I read for 2023's December, and we'll see what January brings. All right, see y'all later. See y'all later. All right, that's all for now. Keep reading, everybody. Bye.